Hi, and welcome to Script and Scribe. I'm Kat, and this is my quiet corner of the internet where I share my love of fountain pens, planners, and all the little tools that help keep me creative and grounded, whether I'm outlining a fantasy novel or just journaling through the week. In this very first video of mine, I thought let's do a relaxed walkthrough of my current pen collection, from the ultra affordable to the more vintage and special. So, ultra affordable, I think you can guess, usually means the dupes, the Chinese manufactured pens that are inspired by other pens in most cases. And some people don't like that, but I always think that it is a really useful entry point for getting into fountain pens and appreciating the different models out there. So, starting off with Jinhao. These are all under £5 or under $5. This is the 159, lovely plum color with a chrome trim. And most of my pens from Jinhao are actually in fine or extra fine nibs, because I find that unlike Japanese pens, the nib writes a lot wider than what you might expect. There are some exceptions, and I'll come to that, but next we go on to the Dadao. I really like this. This is in a green, and it's got a lovely nib design on it. You got the little squiggle heartbeat, so that's a Dadao 1919, and the specific model is the heartbeat one, so that you get that heartbeat nib. Next up, I have got 5 of these ultra reliable Jinhao 82s, and they are a dupe of a pen that I will be showing you in a bit. It's a dupe of the Sailor Pro Gear Slim. So the 82s, I've got an avocado, this lovely shade of turmeric. I think it's the only sort of yellow leaning color I've got. I've got a pen that's got some yellow in it, but this is probably the only one that is entirely that shade. Then we got mint, a dark blue, and lovely bright traditional red, a lilac, and then these ones are all under £1 each, and they're brand new. I got them just earlier in the week because I was curious to see how a very cheap pen might write, and it is the Jinhao Shark. And I'm, impressed. I haven't used this particular green one, but I have inked up, and you'll see I got a set of 12 in all these various shades over here. I've inked up this one, the pink. And I'm laughing at myself because one of the reasons that I keep my pens in a pen case like this is so that they don't get scratched up. So the last thing that I want to do is be throwing them about. And I know that this costs, under £1, and so I shouldn't worry much, but I do love keeping my bodies scratch free. So I highly recommend getting pen cases like this rather than keeping your pens in a pen case all jumbled together. That's one of the things that I've noticed a lot of people tend to do with ballpoints. And you really won't want to have that habit any longer when you're starting to invest in pricier pens. Now, I decided to go with this inexpensive fabric pen case. You can get them for about £30 on Amazon, but top tip, I first saw them on Amazon, almost bought them, and then I noticed that they're on Cult Pens in the UK. And rather than costing £30 or £29.99, they cost £22.50, so cheaper already. And then, if you're on their loyalty system collecting points, you can usually get 10 or 20% off. So this I actually got 20% off for each one for 20% off, and they were then £18 each. I was tempted to go for what I see a lot on the internet, which is the gallon leather. And I love leather products. As you can see, I've got this Paper Republic journal, highly recommend, and another Paper Republic journal, which I think might be 7 years old, and has not only absorbed a lot of, or developed patina, but absorbed a lot of ink. Because, yeah, I can be a bit messy when I am inking up. Anyway, I decided not to go for the leather pen cases. One thing I had noticed is not all leather pen cases, whether they're Gallon or another make, when I was looking, the pens that I get tend to be quite wide. And I don't know if all the pen cases that I'm seeing out there accommodate the sort of width that I go for. So here, for example, we start off with, here's the exception to what I was saying about Jinhao and their nibs. The extra fine for the Jinhao 10 is truly extra fine. I love this nib so much. So while other extra fines from Jinhao tend to write wider, this here is just a gem. Yeah, I can't say enough about that pen. And then we've got another 82, which I didn't place next to the other 82s because I just thought it matches really well with this one. So I went with the sort of like color matching. I've got a gap here because I'm waiting for the arrival of another 82 in milk tea color. So between there and there, the shading. Then we get one of the chunky ones, which isn't hugely chunky. It's not my favorite pen, but I am happy to have it in the collection. And the reason it's not my favorite pen is I don't necessarily like pens that are all one width throughout. I like the grip section to be slightly tucked in from the rest of the pen. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's just what I'm used to. This particular one has a fun little guitar over there. I will have to put the name of it on the subtitles because I can't remember the name of this one. Then we have another 1919, and this one is just the plain nib rather than the heartbeat. And I should clean that out because I've pretty much, oh, no, I've still got some ink in there. As you can see, I do have a few pens that I've got inked up, and I want to get into the habit of actually emptying them out. I have gotten a lot better. As you can see, some of these are empty. Well, you can't see all of them, but they're empty and cleaned out. But that particular one did surprise me. I entirely forgot I had anything in there. I think that is Cult Pen's Deadly Nightshade. And that is a very good pen, actually, to use for that sheening ink. Oh, yeah, you can actually see the sheen of that. So it's a green and a plum, which is a favorite color combination for me, plum and green. But this particular one, even though it is a fine nib, I'm happy to put a sheening ink in. And even though I have kept it in there for about 2 weeks, I'm confident that that is not going to block up the nib. I would not do that to any of my high-end pens because they do tend to block a lot more. And this one writes more like a medium, so absolutely the sheening ink performs really well in there. I'll give you a sample of that later or in another video. Then we go on to the Century, that's sort of like a white marble. And moving on to this one, which is an X159. And yeah, I love the sort of ivory tone to that. Very much matches that ivory tone of the 82. And next to it is a slightly chunkier 1919, which is the same model as this, but just in white. Sort of slightly translucent white. Then we get onto the next pen, which is actually not a Jinhao and is a Kaco. It is the Kaco Master. And if you know your different models in that range, you'll know straight away this is the gold plate because Kaco Master is either gold plated or it is gold in terms of the nib. This is the gold plate, and only the black model comes in gold. You will find a gold plated black, but gold plate is available in white, red and black. Gold itself only in black, which is a real shame. Now we'll straight away see one of the things that I don't like about this pen. When I unscrew the cap, which I did really carefully as you saw, it actually starts to unscrew the nib section from the body, and that is something that really annoys me. It's the only annoyance that I have about this pen. I actually like the way that it writes, but it is a real put off, and I don't know if I've just got a dud. If you have this particular pen and it does that to you, I would love to know, because yeah, it is such a shame, especially when the actual nib itself, and once you've sort of like turned it closed again before writing, that experience is just perfect. I like the weight of it, the balance, everything. Just not this. I bet it's going to do it again. Oh, it didn't. Okay, so it didn't, but that is very rare. Trust me. So yeah, I do like this quite undervalued Kaco. Then we flip over and we've got a mix again, mostly Jinhao, but a mix. So that is another 82 in grey, which I love that shade of grey. It's sort of like purpley, slightly warmer, like a taupe, I guess, or mink. And then we have a proper solid grey from, this should be my Schaefer. Yes, it is. So that's a Schaefer VFM, which means the body is the more plasticky type. I think the Schaefer 100s are the ones that have a metal body. And this was on offer on Cult Pens. They usually retail for about 30 or 36 pounds. I can't remember. The reason I can't remember is because I got it for 22 when they were having their special price on the Schaefer pens around Christmas. So this one isn't very old. It's just a few months. And I think it's a really lovely solid writer. It is quite light, definitely on the light side, but if you like that sort of thing, then this is going to be a really good pick for you. Then we have the cross, and this gave me a nice surprise. I've never tried a cross pen, and again, it was a special price, so £22 around Christmas, and yeah, I really like the performance of this. And moving on to the Asvine, or Asvine. This is the P36 titanium, and this is fitted with the fine nib. So I have just bought it, and I'm looking forward to it because I've heard so many good things about it. And oh well, actually I had a gap there. And the reason I had a gap is because this is the pen that kicked it all off for me, the TWSBI in the smoke. And I love a stub nib for my TWSBI Ecos. I use them so regularly, or I use it so regularly. I've had this one for about, I don't know, maybe whenever this model came out, years. And yeah, it got me back into using fountain pens. So it's not my first fountain pen. It was my first in a long time. So my second fountain pen. We'll get to my first one in there, in that next one. So I'll pop that away for now. And just show you 3 more Jinhao pens. This one should have the model number on there. I think, yes, there we go, X750. And this is just a solid writer. It's with the F nib again, and just in black and chrome. Really good pen. And these are more my sort of ornamental pens, these two. And that's because of the weight of them, especially that. pen. This one's slightly lighter, especially once that cap comes off. So most of the weight is in the cap for this dragon pen. And I love the design. Hopefully you can see that properly. There's really good detail on there. Solid writer, really lovely experience. And like I say, once the cap is off, which is really heavy, this writes lovely. The balance is great. I like the way that it sits there on my finger. So I hold my pen this way, and it's just got a sort of like balance, especially on the callus that I've developed. So yeah, one that is less functional than this ornamental one, because I do still consider it fairly ornamental. I don't whip it out, don't carry it about because of the weight of the cap. But this one I really don't carry about at all. I keep it in here because it is so ornate and heavy. And this is the Cloud and Dragon Totem. Love, love, love the detail. There's most of the clouds down here and the dragon up there. Yeah, I can't fault it other than the weight. It writes really well too. The finish is just lovely. I would highly recommend it if you don't mind the weight of it while writing. Certainly you can just, use it for a few flourishes. I don't reckon you want this for a 2-hour session. But yeah, I'm in love with the aesthetic of it. So that's one thing you'll find with pens. You'll either be into the aesthetic or into the functionality. And the sweet spot is where you get that functionality meets aesthetic, that, yeah, grail pen. Okay, so we move slightly up. And you'll see a brand that most people know well these days, which is the Benu. I had originally bought the Dailymate, so that you can see here, not the first one, just these 5. I had 7, and I've given 2 of the days away. And that's because I don't work Mondays and Tuesdays, and I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to keep the work week. Which is a shame because the Monday was a really gorgeous green, if you know the Dailymates. And yeah, anyway, so I've got Wednesday through to Sunday. Sunday is easily recognizable because it's this gold. One thing that I have done is, I don't think I've changed this one, so that's open. This should be the Wednesday. This here is the nib that I got on all of them because I had to have the same nib when I bought all 7. And I went with the medium just to be safe. Now this is the Schmidt number 6 nib, and what I did is I wanted to switch out some of the sizes. I didn't want them all to be medium, but I found a really cheap eBay site for the number 5s. So you'll see that this nib is a lot shorter, and I like the gold for the gold. It doesn't match the actual cap trim, but what can I say? I will get the actual number 6 Schmidt in gold, but for now this is the number 5 Schmidt, and it's doing a good job. So the odd one out for the Benus, that's not a Dailymate, is this Astrogem. And this is in a broad nib. And I love the Astrogem. It is just such a pleasure to write with. It just sits right. Yeah, I can't fault it. I love the design of this. This is the Clio. I remember the name of this because I was, I had my eye on it for such a long time. Love that finish. I know that Benus are a bit too sparkly for some people, but I like to introduce a bit of fun into my writing, and that's what this really provides. So we'll pop that back. This is the Opus 88 Harmony, And I love the abstract design of this. So I think this is an underrated one. It's the gold plated and is on sale on Cult Pens. I got it for 102 is a special price, and then I used my 20% off, so I got it for I guess about 80, slightly more. And yeah, it is definitely worth that. It's the only gold plate that I've got in the Opus 88 collection. This here is a 1.5 stub, all steel nibbed. This is the Demonstrator in grey and yellow. And this is the 2021 design. So that's the Pantone colors that they matched for 2021. Fantastic writer. Alongside the TWSBI that I've got in a 1.1 stub, in a 1.1 stub. I love this 1.5. I shouldn't have capped it, should I? I haven't properly shown you this. So yeah, I do really love my Opus 88s. I like an eyedropper pen where you can fill them up. And with this particular one, I really have filled it up because I've been writing with it a lot. I actually just refilled it. But usually I would only go to about that level because I don't want to muck up my inks. I don't want to overfill a pen, empty it out back into a bottle. I never do that. So I tend to not put much ink into most of my pens. Then we go on to this lovely chunky one. This was my first Opus 88. It's the Omar Demonstrator. And again, as you can see, really filled a lot, unlike my other pens, because I just use them all the time. And this is an extra fine nib, so I really use that a lot. That's filled with a deep blue, which should be Wicked Witch from Wearing-Gil, the Korean ink. And then again, another Opus 88. This is the Flora. It's a sort of Omar, but it's got a lovely vase design to it. I've seen that more recently they have the Flora available as a demo model. So that would be lovely too, but I do like this sort of like detail, just a little bit of an unusual quirkiness to it. And this is the pen that I meant, that has got some yellow in it alongside this, of course. This is yellow and grey, and then this one has got all of the different mixes in there. It really does feel floral. Love it. It had a 2.6 stub in here, and I switched that out recently. So I got some Opus 88s, and I found that the Opus 88s only actually fit my Demonstrator. And by luck, I had gotten the Asvine nibs, and that has fit in here. I'll let you know which particular model of Asvine. But yeah, that is now an extra fine rather than a 2.3. And this is the first flex pen I'm showing you. It is from the Good Blue. It's got a lovely shape. It's kind of like cigar, but it's got that flatness to it there that allows it to bounce and not roll away. I do have to say I don't reach for this pen very often. I've recently cleaned it out. So this was a bright white when it first arrives, and then it sort of like colors from use with the different inks. I've used a lot of writer's blood in there from Dailymate. Now, one thing that I don't like about the Flex pen, this one from the Good Blue, is that this nib section comes out fairly easily. I've heard that it happens with the TWSBI pens, and you have to make sure that it's nicely seated in there. But you don't want to shove it in too hard because you don't want to ruin your actual nib and the tines. So be sure that you've got it nicely seated in there, or you'll end up with a whole lot of ink pooling out onto your page as you're writing. I'll definitely demonstrate that one day. So we pop that one back. It was actually a really pricey one, so it's disappointing that the nib is doing that. Again, I don't know if it's a one-off, and other people with the same model will have a different experience. Then we have the Diplomat Aero, and I like the way that this opens. It's not a screw on or off cap, it's just got a nice satisfying click. And I got this on eBay and I am so pleased with it. The person had said they'd used it very lightly. These retail for about £350 and I got mine for £100. And the interesting thing is there was someone else selling another Diplomat Aero for £100, but that was the steel nib and this is the gold nib. It writes beautifully. I have no complaints about this. I love the shape of it. Everything about this pen is just a pleasure. And it doesn't dry out fast. So that was my worry with that click of the pen, rather than screwing it shut, but it works. Then we have one I've not used yet, and it looks very much like a Sailor Pro Gear Slim. And that's because this is actually made by Sailor, but for Nagasawa. It's a Nagasawa Profit, and I got the music nib. I've not used it yet. So that is one I am definitely going to be using in the next week. That's a second pen I've not used, I think, that I've mentioned here. And I'm looking forward to it. But for some reason, I'm also a little bit nervous. So I don't know if you've used a music nib, if you have any tips. Otherwise, I'm going to read up first. I like to read up on new nibs before I give them a go. So for example, before I use the flex, I figured out that you're not supposed to be pressing really hard to get that line variation. You let the nib actually do its job without you forcing it. Right, so this is the actual Pro Gear Slim from Sailor, and this is limited edition for cult pens, and I love the shade, the mauve. It's called Dusk. And I got the extra fine nib. It scratches away wonderfully. It is smooth yet feedbacky. I don't know how to describe that experience, so I am in love with this pen. It was a fantastic gift. Yeah. Then we go on to this delight, which is the Pelikan M400. I had actually wanted to get it in grey, but this was on offer for half the price, again on cult pens around Christmas, so I couldn't not go for that, rather than having to save up for the grey one, and I have no complaints. I love the look of it, I love the feel of it, and the writing. Then we go on to Century 3776, and this is just such a delight. From Platinum, it is such a delight. This is the laurel green color. Yeah. I do sometimes find that unlike the Sailor and the Pilot, the screwing, there we go, that's going a lot smoother. Before it was really kind of stiff. That is the only thing that I've got to say about that that's slightly negative, and now it's not doing it, so there we go. Ooh, there we go, bit of stiffness as you come to the last closure. But yeah, love it. And then we get to the Pilot, and this was, so all of these I actually got on special offer at Cult Pens, these four. This was the eBay buy, and this was my first eBay buy before the Diplomat Aero, and it is a Pilot 74. And someone was having a clear out, and I got this for £70. I wasn't sure if I was going to get something really good, because I had been eyeing some very quite scratched up Pilot pens on the site, and thought to myself, you know what, it's a 74 and others like the 823, so this might be a good introduction into Pilot for me. And then suddenly someone posted this and said they've hardly used it, and I think they're telling the truth, because it is in such good condition. The nib was fantastic, there's no scratches, nothing, and yeah, I'm just so pleased that I found this. So that is the Waterman Careen, and this was the first pen that I used as an adult. That is a fountain pen. I used a Rotring in high school, and I wish I'd kept it because I've been seeing it online available at like £200, and I think mine cost something in the region of £10 at the time in the 90s. But anyway, this Waterman Careen is what got me back into fountain pens. I really just loved the smooth writing experience. It was £60 in 2011 on Amazon. And we're almost done, except for this vintage one, which I again found on eBay for £40 and was recommended to get by my friend in Taiwan. He said all the fountain pen lovers into vintage pens in Taiwan love this Senator Regent pen, and for good reason, because it's got fantastic line variation even though it's not described as a flex pen. So this was in its original box. I think the patina on the actual gold tone is purely age from sitting in the box because it didn't look like it had ever been inked. I love the way this pen writes. It's not the best pairing with a dry ink, but with a wet ink you'll get amazing line variation from this. So I'm looking forward to showing you what this can do. I sort of feel like I need to show you the line variation of this pen after mentioning it. So I haven't put the cap back on, but it does have a sort of like vacuum way of filling, and the variation is as though it were a flex pen. So let's go very light and then put normal pressure on. Very light and normal, very light and normal. And I don't see that sort of variation for other pens that are not described as having a degree of flex. So this is the Senator. As you can tell, I'm not used to easing my pressure and then using the normal. So when I remember to really sort of do a feather light touch like that, you can see the variation. Otherwise it will come across looking just quite standard. But if you remember it, light and then normal, you'll be fine. So, and you don't want to be pressing it so that the tines are going far apart. It's just a normal sort of like pressure to it. I hope that makes sense. And if you find one of these on eBay, I can highly recommend them. I think I saw someone on a fountain pen group say that they overdid the pressure on theirs and they've damaged the tines. So I think you can get overconfident with doing that, and potentially there was something about his feed as well where the ink sort of like splodged onto the page, and I've not had a problem with it. I hope you enjoyed my very first video on YouTube about pens. I am very much still new to fountain pens, even though I've had the Waterman since 2011. I'm learning a lot more than I realized there was to learn about fountain pens, and I keep learning, and I'm especially impressed with how many inks we also have that I don't remember being there before. So one of my favorites, or fast favorites, is definitely Werengiel. I'm probably saying that incorrectly, but this Korean ink maker, I love their inks. They've got wonderful shading, and very often they have these variations that they do for you where you can add some glitter potion into your standard pens. So if you feel like having, a serious day with the Tin Woodman, you just use a straight, but otherwise you could add in a little bit of glitter potion and have a different vibe entirely with the same base ink, and I like that versatility. I hope you enjoyed this walkthrough of my pens, and I'm just looking forward to being part of this community. So thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments which pens you have in common, which ones look interesting to you. Are there any of these pens that you've had on your list that you've been wanting to get? I think a lot of you who are into Benu pens will know the downside that I had forgotten to mention, which is the number of times that you have to turn a cap on the Dailymate to actually get them to open. So I've seen that done on so many channels, but I suppose it's worth demonstrating again, and we can go with the Joyful Saturday. So if I just pull out the Joyful Saturday here, love the whole design, and then you get the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So a lot of people say they do 5.5 twists. So perhaps I was just being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, still not 6. Yeah, 6 twists for me. I suppose if I'm in a lazy mood and I'm not twisting entirely, then it's a 7, but yeah, definitely a 6. Still, it has not put me off this model. I just like how lightweight they are without being too light. I don't know if that makes sense, but the balance is perfect. And I do like the number 6 Schmidt nib. Very reliable, very fun, and these are always great paired with some sheening inks. Well, that's it from me. Thanks so much for watching, and take care. Bye.